Welcome to Harbinger's flagship interactive webinar, Power Hour. Select the right speaker for audio output. Test your speaker from audio settings. If necessary, join the webinar using your phone. Use the Q&A panel to share your questions. This webinar is being recorded. Attendees will receive the recording. Let's tune in.
Hello everyone. Good morning. Hope all of you are doing well. My name is Mahesh Kenny and I'm going to be the moderator for today's exciting session. I'm helped by Kumudini, who's going to be managing today's chat session. I would like to first thank you all for joining today's exciting session, Power Hour on Intelligent Platform, hosted by Harbinger. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I would like to inform you that you may be aware that Power Hour is a series of interactive roundtable sessions with industry experts and stalwarts to share their experiences and insights on exciting topics as we are doing today. Today, the world of work is constantly evolving, and in this changing landscape, the skills is the new currency. But today's topic is talent intelligence to drive skills-based transformation. With that, I would like to introduce Harbinger's founder, Dr. Vikas Joshi, who's going to be the host of today's Power Hour. Vikas, welcome. Just a brief overview about Vikas. Vikas is the founder and executive chairman and CEO of the Harbinger Group. Vikas Joshi is a business leader who's passionate about products development, innovative solution development, and technology entrepreneurship. His mission is to help create software solutions that make a difference in the world. A key part of that mission is to inspire technology professionals and entrepreneurs grow and develop. Welcome, Vikas, and the stage is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahesh. And hello, everyone. In today's Power Hour, we're going to hit 4 high points. First, we're going to highlight how job roles are changing and how they demand fluidity of skill sets. Next, we talk about the big topic today, which is talent intelligence. This movement is something our panelists will dive into deeply. But for now, just recognize that talent intelligence sits at the intersection of skill-based and business decisions. Transformations of business and transformations of organizational capability are two things that reciprocally influence each other. And it's fascinating to see how a transformed business demands new skills, and with newer skills, the business transforms further. So we'll hear more about that story as it plays out. And there's more. We will hear about the key to the hidden leverage of such talent intelligence platforms. Eric Schafford, who is one of our panelists, is going to talk about getting past the information silos. That's our number 3. And finally, we'll have some real-world storytelling from our panelists. So hope that sounds like a plan to all of you, and let's get after it. I'm going to quickly frame this issue of skill fluidity and talent intel using 2 lenses. One is the lens of the recent past, and the other of the near future. Starting with the recent past, as we can all see, skills have taken center stage now. Here's a couple of surveys that we have cited that show that the number of roles that demand degree credentials have dropped dramatically. The number of executives that plan to upskill their workforce has risen dramatically. And organizations that have a skills-based approach to decision-making are far more likely to manage talent mobility within the companies. So given these 3 things, we're already beginning to hear the rumblings of what's coming, which is the near future. And in the near future, we see bigger disruptions. Business leaders are now considering skill gaps as the biggest or at least one of the biggest barriers to implementing business transformation. And that's obvious because 39% of average worker skills are about to be outdated or needing change. And that's a stark statistic. 59% of the workforce will require upskilling or reskilling by 2030. So all of this is going on, and to make sense of it, it's time to welcome our panel. They're going to tell us about skill-based talent intelligence, how to do it well, what the challenges are, and how talent intelligence platforms help and their business stories. So Eric is joining us from Miami Beach, Florida, Bhaskar from Palo Alto, and Harbinger Poonam from Pune, India. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourselves, maybe a minute of intro, and then what makes you interested in this topic. Perhaps I could request Eric to go first.
I'll be happy to go first, and thank you so much for the introduction, Vikas. So, Eric Shepard, I ran a software company for 30 years, a bit like yourself, and we were focused in the assessment business, so doing certification assessments, and that was very closely tied to skills and competencies because we were assessing skills and competencies to see if someone was qualified for a job. The things have kind of changed in that instead of people getting big qualifications, we're seeing micro credentials become more important. And as we go through this upskilling for the next generation of work, we see that it's so important for people to get these micro training, micro credentials. But then we end up with a huge problem of which are the skills needed, which are the skills not needed, which skills do people have, which do they not have, how can we put in the right kind of learning experience. So the reason I'm passionate about this is that if we're not careful, we're going to leave a lot of people on the sidelines. We're seeing young adults are not seeing the entry-level jobs that were evident a few years ago because Gen AI and other AI systems are taking away those entry-level jobs. And then we see people in their mid-career that there was kind of a social contract. I'll study hard, I'll work hard, and I'm going to be successful. And now their jobs are fragmenting and disappearing because of AI and automations, etc. So we have to help those folks work out which are the skills, which are the paths to take in order to be relevant, stay relevant, and be able to contribute to the world of work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us, and over to you, Bhaskar.
Thank you, Vikas. Well, thank you for having me, first of all, to be part of this exciting discussion. And good morning, good evening, everybody, depending on when you're joining. So very quickly, I'm Bhaskar Deka, GVP of Product Management and AI at Skillsoft. And my quick background, I've been in the enterprise software industry for quite some time. Most recent years, I've been in the HR tech space, including as my role as Chief Product and AI Officer for Vikas, which was a learning experience platform pioneer, LXP, as well as I was a GM for employee growth experience product at Cornerstone before coming to Skillsoft. And I'm particularly very interested in this topic because, as Mahesh mentioned early on, that skills is the currency that ties all talent platforms together. And me and my team are responsible for the talent platform here at Skillsoft, and having been in this space with Vikas Cornerstone before, very accurately aware of both the opportunities as well as the challenges of building a foundational skills layer, not only just for your organization, but how, more importantly, you integrate with what else is there in the ecosystem. Once you build a foundation, then you start building out, the business layer about whether it's career mobility or workforce planning. So the fact that this is all tied together by skills, and then as Eric and Vikas mentioned, so what does it mean when you have AI and Gen AI now disrupting the whole space. I think it's a very exciting time to be in the midst of it. So it's a very timely conversation. Looking forward to the conversation here.
Wonderful. Well, great to have you, and over to you, Poonam, for your introduction.
Thank you, Vikas, so much. And I'm excited to be a part of this panel today. So good morning and good evening to the people in the audience. So I'm Poonam Jaypuriya. I've spent over 2 decades in the learning industry now. I've been associated with Harbinger for over 21 years. And in my role, I've been helping various organizations globally to design and scale innovative digital learning solutions. My passion has always been at the intersection of learning, technology, and business outcomes. And I've had opportunity to lead various large-scale learning transformations right from modernizing legacy content to building AI-powered solutions that connect learning with the real skills. So a topic which is very close to my heart, and that's what excites me to be a part of this conversation today.
Thank you. Thanks, Poonam. So starting with you, Eric, give us a sense of what's driving this shift to skills-first strategies, and why is it getting momentum now even more than ever? Over to you.
Well, yeah, let me give you some very brief context.
Sure.
So we can think of this in the meta view of the industrial revolutions. So the first industrial revolution, we had, power making machines. We had resistance against that was dissipated. We then had the second industrial revolution, which was around mass production. It was standards were so important to that. So we had standardized things like screw threads and metal composition. And so we could mass produce things like cars. We got to the third industrial revolution. So the second industrial revolution required the move from the farm to the factory. So we introduced a public education system that that educated everybody about numeracy, English language or language skills, reading, writing, progressed to STEM. And then the third industrial revolution, we had the storage and retrieval systems that we thought were very advanced at the time, that essentially we would input data and then we'd extract it in different forms to provide us decision support tools. Now, as we move into the fourth industrial revolution, we're finding that these computers are not just doing storage and retrieval for decision support. They're actually helping us with more decisions. They can consume so much more data than the human brain can comprehend and distilling it. So that means that a number of job roles that relied on people's experience to make decisions are now going to be replaced with AI. So there's that doom and gloom. Oh my goodness, all of our jobs are going to be taken by AI. But we have to remember that skills pays the bills. So it's just new skills that we need to ensure that our citizens have, our populations have, our employees have. So communications is critical. As we work in teams, and individuals within teams have greater specialization, they need to communicate effectively. Inevitably, when there's a creativity going on, there's going to be disagreements. So they've got to learn how to manage and handle conflict within the team. So there's new skills that probably weren't applicable in the second and maybe even the third industrial revolutions. In the fourth industrial revolution, absolutely key, these people skills. The good news is we need to relearn how to be people. We need to be people and we need to bring our creativity so that our machines can provide a different kind of decision support that they've given in the past. So why is it important now? We're going through this reskilling, upskilling for these new skills required for the fourth industrial revolution.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you for sharing that. I want to turn to you, Bhaskar, and the big question. Skills have taken center stage. How has that made talent intelligence platforms the next inevitable movement? What's the role of these platforms in the modern workplace? Who makes these things? How many of them are out there? Just give us a landscape of talent intelligence so we can have a discussion on this.
Absolutely, Vikas. Well, first of all, before that, I thought, Eric, I'm going to start using your skills-based bills. I hope you don't have a patent on that expression.
I have copyright, but not a patent. It's okay.
Absolutely. So, no, I mean, this is an exciting, obviously, time to be talking about both skills and talent in this platform. But I think it does make sense, to your point, because to even define what exactly is a talent intelligence platform, and how do we leverage that in the workspace. So in a sense, a very quick way to maybe think about talent intelligence platform is it's a data-driven kind of system that's designed for organizations to be able to manage and to be able to advance their workforce through a lot of actual actionable insights. And this insight nowadays obviously are mostly driven by AI, which we'll talk a little bit about. So what does it really do? I mean, I think that's the one key thing to think about is what's the North Star I'm implementing or putting the system together. So the North Star, as I've seen in my experience with this platform, is really about employee retention. And employee retention, as we know, is a top of mind. It's not for CHR or CLO. It's actually a C-suite concern. And then there are clear data that shows that it's much easier as well as less expensive to retain somebody than hire somebody and retrain. The number is about 5x or 4x depending on the industry you're in. And then the other key thing is that about 65% of the people leave the organization not because of money, and that's true for even coin-operated salespeople, that people leave because they are tapping out in their potential within the organization. So if you provide a way for somebody to, I think earlier in our conversation, Eric talked about GPS. If you provide a career GPS to your employees, where they have a clear path about where they are right now, what skills gaps they have, how do they manage the skills gap, and there's a plan to get to the next level that they want to. That's what the core part of that your talent intelligence platform is. And then the word intelligence in that midst is very important, because you as an organization need to understand what really makes that skill gap analysis and then the career pathing possible from an org perspective. How does succession planning and other aspects come in? But also, what does it mean for the end user or the learner or the employee? Having come from the EdCast world, a good metaphor I use is that in an EdCast, which disrupted the learning experience platform, which disrupted that learning market by saying, I'm going to be the Spotify of learning versus radio station of a learning management system, which broadcasts your training, your assigned training, and so forth. So I think a good metaphor really for a talent intelligence platform is that career GPS, that how do we provide that career GPS to your employees, and by extension, then help your organization to retain the key folks that you need to. Now, so top of mind, again, the question is, how do you look at a system that you want to employ to your organization, or how we want to build? Most people don't build it anymore, but there are products out there in the market, including ours, which lets you leverage that. So the key components you want to be thinking about is right at the bottom, at the foundation, is the skills. And I know we'll talk about skills quite a bit. And these skills, it's not an easy problem to solve, as Eric also mentioned, that there are different types of skill, and then you might argue, is Java a skill or it's a skill group? Or that's true for your leadership and similar soft skills as well. So at the bottom layer, you have the skill. At the top layer, you can think about, how do I do career mobility, career pathing? How do I do workforce planning? I need to tie both of these together along with your very intelligence and analytics module, lack of a better term, that ties in not only what is relevant in your organization, but how do you benchmark it against the industry? If you're in the pharma or banking and financial services, what are the top trending skills within that industry, and how do you stack up, and how do you reskill, upskill your people related to that? And then the final point, or the final component I will talk about, is the fact that you need to be integrating with rest of the products in your ecosystem. It's not an island. The talent intelligence cannot be an island. So whether it's your applicant tracking system, whether it's your HRIS system, whether it's other job architecture, even your Excel spreadsheet you might have, you need to be able to tie it all together. And hopefully you're tying all of this together with a Gen AI and AI-based interface. I know we have a lot of other topics to cover, but that's where I end.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. So just to make sure I understand this completely, the talent intelligence system is not a learning management system. It's not a HRIS. It sits alongside these two. And what it does is it supports applications like workforce planning, applicant tracking, internal mobility, potentially even coaching, learning, mentoring, all of that stuff. Is that a fair thing to say?
Absolutely. I think you covered it really well, because it is a separate product or solution, but it integrates. It has to integrate nicely with the rest of the products, including HRS and LMS, like you pointed out.
Okay, wonderful. And then with reference to that, is this something that HRIS would be providing natively, or there's going to be separate specialized providers of talent intelligence platforms that one would have to buy from and integrate with the HRIS that you own?
Great question, Vikas. So in the early days, when I say early days, maybe about 5-6 years back, there were big organizations, IT, that started developing some in-house solutions related to it. There's still maybe a few, but pretty soon it became very clear that it makes sense to have, rather than focusing on that, which is not a core competency for the organization, have it integrated or in a classic build versus buy. So there are products with some of the early pioneers in this, like Gloat, Field 50, a couple of names that I can talk about who started the category. But everybody, including HRIS vendors as well as talent platforms like ourselves, we provide solutions to that. So the key thing for an organization looking for it would be to look at does it cover all the bases for the capabilities that a TIP needs to have? I'm calling TIP as a talent platform since that's what we're calling it here. And then the other key thing is you pointed out coaching. So you're going to be looking at, do I have integration with the coaching capabilities? Does it natively tie with my learning content? So those are some of the things you should be looking at while evaluating a solution.
Sure. Just one last clarifying question. Toward the end, you said something to the effect that this system is going to help me figure out how my bank stacks up against other banks, my pharma company stacks up against others. How do you solve that problem unless everybody in banking has a common skill taxonomy or some common idea of what those competencies are? And I'm sure this is something Eric would also be probably thinking about. Is this a solution that makes sense within an organization, or does it go across an industry?
Great question. In fact, that is sort of the million-dollar question in many ways, that as you pointed out, that there's a diverse set of skills available, and then you could have one ontology or taxonomy that has 40,000 skills that are minus 10,000, and then it varies from within the same industry. One company might have call it one way or the other. The good news there is, I think with the specialized tools of Gen AI and AI that's available right now, it's getting, lack of a better term, easier to harmonize the problem, it's not solved yet because they're on top of the new skills are coming every day. But one good metaphor that I've seen recently is that you can think of skills as, and Eric, I'm interested in your thought, that there can be about 70% skills which are static in nature. I mean, if you look at industries where there are many skills which are more static in nature, whereas more technology focused one might be more dynamic and changing, right? Agentic AI today, maybe tomorrow, another one. So if we come up with a good way to harmonizing the skills on the static layer, that's about 70% coverage. That's a good way to put them together in some level of harmonization that can be used. But it's not a fully solved problem yet. It requires both product solutions as well as like we were good consulting engagements, because every company is different and need to be able to take something that has been built to then deploy it within an organization.
Sure. So, Eric, your thoughts on that one? And
So a couple of
a new
thoughts.
question for you as well.
So a couple of thoughts. One, used the word harmonization, and I wonder whether it's going to be more crosswalks between taxonomies. What I've witnessed in large organizations is that they come up with a taxonomy, and then another silo will say, oh, we don't think communication skills are that. We think communication skills are this. And they're kind of just redefining the same thing. And so it's difficult to constrain people, say, no, you have to work with a centralized model. But they feel that there's something different. So crosswalks between these taxonomies. That's just one thought. And I agree with the 70%, and it's generally an 80-20 rule. Maybe it's a 7-30 rule here, 70-30 rule. The other thing that what I would love to see, and it's probably a pipe dream, is to have organizations have to declare their knowledge, skills, ability on their balance sheet. And the more that we can get data standardized, we could do this. And then it would encourage the organization to actually look at their people and the skills of their people as an asset that they could put on the balance sheet. That would be more meaningful to a board. As we go into AI, it's probable that many organizations that standardize on AI will just look like one another, because the AI models are all going to come up with the same thing. They're all based on the past. So every organization is going to look like every other organization, probably within their category. The only thing that's going to make them different is their people. And so investing in their people's skills is going to be critical so that they are different in and seen differently in the marketplace.
So I just... Sorry, because I just want to thank you, Eric, for your thoughts. First of all, I absolutely agree with what you said about the crosswalks. I think that, in fact, even within our organization, that's what we are building. So we have our own ontology, but then there's crosswalk with Microsoft Skills Graph as an example, or Lightcast, because the reality is that someone might standardize, even though they might have our product, they will might have standardized on a Lightcast taxonomy or Microsoft Skills Graph. So I think that is critical. It's no easy task to build the right crosswalks, but vendors are more and more open to that, as I've seen. Sorry, because I interrupted you.
No, I was going to make the same point that that there's going to be some investment of effort in making that work across vendors, as well as through an industry. Next question for you, Eric, is what I think Bhaskar foreshadowed earlier, which is reaching out to other systems and integrating data for enabling skill insights. Why is that important? Where do you see the ache and pain?
So it comes a bit down to crosswalks, just to use that as a theme here. So what we see is the skills being recruited, the skills then being used by managers, and then people developing new skills. But there isn't this kind of feedback to say, are my successful employees coming in at an entry point with a certain level of skills that will help them be successful through their life cycle with the company. So if we have, for instance, a taxonomy used by an ATS to to produce the interview questions, to evaluate resumes, CVs, etc., and then we use a different taxonomy for judging someone's salary and performance, etc., and then we use another one by L&D to judge what the skills gaps are. Everything misconnected. The employee might not realize it, but there's kind of confusion in that. So harmonizing that, we can start recruiting people with the right kind of skills. So it might not be the skills that are required for the task. It may be that we want learnability skills, we want agility, we want resilience. So we're going to recruit for those kind of skills because we know that those kind of people coming into our organization will be successful. In another organization, we might say, well, we don't actually want resilience and agility and learnability. We want something else because it's a role that they just have to turn up, do some tasks and go home. So we've and just to talk through some of the challenges of that, we're seeing a huge rise in what we would call AI slop, which is where candidates are very wisely, curiously taking their resume, taking the job description and saying, please reformat my resume to match this job description. So what's happening at the front end of ATS systems is they're getting a massive amount of resumes that look exactly the same. So how do you tell the difference? In the future, we think we'll tell the difference by verifiable credentials and skills, verifiable skills. So when that comes into the ATS, that will help us progress through the employee life cycle.
Yeah, that's a great point, Eric. I wanted to push you on this laser sharp focus on individual skills by taking a contrarian view. Sometimes it makes sense to think of a whole team as having just the right complementary skills so that the team as a whole can perform a lot better. And that's a totally different type of outcome than hiring each individual for the best possible skills. In other words, you could have a team of 10 A players or a team comprising A and B players that together accomplish much more. Is there a room for skill and competency taxonomy work to make room for more than one person? In other words, use a group as a unit of analysis rather than an individual.
I 1000% agree. We're in violent agreement here. So a team should be made up of these complementary skills. There are some base level skills that they're going to need to communicate and to resolve conflict and to be resilient in times of crisis and etc. But I believe we'll see in the future people will become more specialized in their profession. And in that specialization, they will come together. So yes, you're looking at complementary skills and complementary working styles. I think if we think of a rough and tumble person on an oil rig in a place like the North Sea, you probably want to have a different kind of working style than you would have as a developer in Pune or in Palo Alto. So matching those styles, behaviors, as well as skills is part of what a talent intelligence system should be doing.
Wonderful. Well, thanks. Thanks for those thoughts. We have our next question for Bhaskar. So just bring it up for you. You mentioned generative AI to solve one of the challenges I had surfaced earlier. Maybe you want to talk a little more broadly. How exactly are you applying AI to uncover insights that were previously difficult to extract from, tabular databases on one hand and unstructured content on the other. What has changed, and how's that making it the right moment for talent intelligence systems?
Absolutely. So I'm not going to talk so much about the user aspect of it. But when I say user, like you could have a generative AI interface to, instead of, for example, looking at a report, you could actually put a prompt and ask for a report about, my talent insights. So I'm going to set it aside for now. But the thing that I'm super excited about is, we talked about the crosswalks and the challenges of harmonization with our skills. And typically, in the pre-generative AI world, where we were still using a lot of predictive AI, you would be, for example, looking at a lot of job postings that Eric mentioned earlier, and then trying to extract data about skills and data about how the roles and skills map to each other and so forth. And it's still, a lot of work, and then you need to do a lot of human in the loop after AI has done some mapping or then you need to do a validation on top of it. What is really exciting about generative AI is that, and I'm sure some of us have already played with GPT-5 that was released maybe about a week ago now, that many of the heavy lifting can be done by these large language models themselves, because inherently they're so good at working with unstructured data, like what you mentioned, Vikas, that instead of getting my structured data and unstructured handling in a different way, now I can have a fine-tuned large language model and I can send it off to do some of the mapping and some of the harmonization. That said, I think it is still a lot of work with human in the loop, because it still hallucinates. Even with all the reasoning capabilities or chain of thought that GPT-5 talks about as an example with the latest model, it still requires a lot of work. And then the other key thing is, and again, Eric and you mentioned as well, the very reason crosswalks are needed is because you have specialized flavors of this ontologies or taxonomies. So you might have one way of harmonizing through your large language model with Gen AI, but then how do you then apply it when you're building the crosswalk to another ontology? In summary, though, when you apply the concepts of what has always been available as a predictive AI before generative AI came into the scene, and you leverage generative AI capabilities with large language model and similar tools, the combination of that seems to be very promising, and that's something that we are applying. So it's not only when you're ingesting sources of skills into your ontology, but also when you're building crosswalks with other ontologies. In both cases, we are finding AI to be very useful, powerful, as long as you structure it right and you still put human validation on top of it. Many organizations, I'm sure folks who are on the call either have or thinking about it, has this notion of a skills architect that we are seeing that as a skilled architect, either a role or a set of roles that has sort of lack of a better definitive say about what the skill architecture looks like within that organization. So we are applying the similar things for human in the loop in our products, so that once AI has done the work, there is still a set of humans who does that validation and has the final say.
I see.
If I may, I'd like to just jump in on something that you said there, Bhaskar, which was around predictive AI. So predictive AI, in simple terms, it takes point A, then it takes point B, and it projects to point C. And we saw a lot of recruitment systems take all of their recruitment data, feed it into models, and the predictions and the recommendations for the candidates to recruit were based on the biases of the recruitment team. And so there's some classic studies about this, how it ended up being bad, is the bottom line. But now we're seeing Gen AI systems that are using the same data, but not on recruitment data, using it on skills data. So now we can look at resumes and skills data and come up with a much more effective predictive model. There was a very interesting study. It just came out, I think, on Friday. It was done in the Philippines with 70,000 candidates for customer service roles, which is a large business in the Philippines. So 70,000 roles. And they basically looked at Gen AI, and they looked at humans. And Gen AI won hands down for candidate satisfaction, for retention in the job, for turning up on the first day, all the metrics that people worry about with recruiting. And the candidates had a better experience, and there was less bias by whatever metrics they were doing. Very interesting study, which I think validates this idea of using skills as the metrics, not past data as the metrics. I'd be happy to send anyone the link if they're interested in the study.
Well, thanks. Thank you, Aaron. I mean, these are, Eric, these are very useful inputs, both in terms of verifiable skills as a basis for staffing up teams, and skills as essentially a tool in the armor to counter biases that Gen AI may have. That makes me think, and in a positive way, about technology. So thank you for that. I do realize that you may have to skip out just a little earlier, which is fine, but as long as you're here, we'll keep bothering you. Okay. Right.
It's enjoyable conversation. Thank you.
It is indeed. So next we have a question for Poonam. Whenever we talk about skills or people, their mobility and so on, inevitably there's this question about learning, right? If the skills were the balance sheet, then the learning is the P&L. You take them from point A to point B using learning. So why is learning content pivotal to the effectiveness of AI-powered talent intelligence platforms? That sounds like a big question, but really, I mean, whatever it is that Bhaskar is talking about, where does learning content fit in, and why is it so important? Not just the competencies and the taxonomies and all of the other stuff, but also learning content.
Content. Absolutely. And since you talked about Bhaskar, he also mentioned about GPS couple of times. I'll take that as an example, Vikas. So
Sure.
For me, a talent intelligence platform is almost like a map, but without the right content. It's like the GPS is missing in that map. So you know where you are, but you don't know how to go from there to the next point. So that's what the content does to a good talent intelligence platform. So basically for me, the platform and the content go hand in hand. Like we talked about the LMSs in the past, the traditional LMSs, which were more about tracking just the course completion scores and so on. But what's interesting is the skills is dynamic, and I think we heard that even from Eric earlier. And when you're tracking something which is dynamic, it needs to be tracked not just for today, but how it is changing over time. And which means that, the content also has to be tweaked. It has to be aligned to those skills, and should be made available and accessible as based on the skill mapping and so on. So I'll give you an example of how we have been working with another customer in the digital online learning space, which is in leadership training based out of Pittsburgh. So we have been helping them build different AI models to assess over 50 different leadership skills or behaviors. So for example, empathy, inspiring others, motivating teams. Now, earlier in the content, how would you even assess whether a learner is empathetic or not? But with Gen AI and the right kind of content you create, there there is a way to analyze or assess these skills for an individual. So what the AI basically does is there are scenario-based experiences we are designing, which allow the learners to go through an experience, and the AI evaluates it on those different parameters. And based on the responses, it's able to map the appropriate skills, and the skill gap finds the gaps. And based on the gaps, it's then able to find the right short modular bite-sized learning content, which can be assigned to the individual to take it as and when needed. So that's where the platform and the content go hand in hand. And Eric also talked about, even Bhaskar alluded to the integration experience. So for one of our enterprise customer, what we are doing is there's an LXP platform, but it's also integrated with Salesforce and learning management system. So what it does is, based on what the employee skill gaps are, not just that, but also for the salesperson, what the current prospect conversations are going on, the system is able to pick the right learning modules based on, again, the gaps and the help needed, so that the learning is not just immediate, but it's also relevant and impactful for the learner. So that's what content is for me. What it does to a talent intelligence platform is really make the most of that investment someone would do in future.
That's amazing, Poonam, especially the first point, that the first story that you told us. I cannot imagine what could have been a way of accomplishing that. I recently tried, with the GPT-5, a simple exercise of, writing a piece of my speech, and then giving it a couple of hashtags, hashtag mirror, hashtag depth, hashtag no polish. And it gave me a scathing critic of what incoherence I had in that speech with the no polish. With mirror, it told me how it sounds to various people, what's the emotional resonance. I mean, this level of nuance and this level of input was, I was not aware of any technology before Gen AI that could do that. You really had to go to real people, or maybe talk to an audience to find out if they were smiling or clapping or not. So I can see the appeal of designing scenarios where you just be yourself and practice your behaviors, and then against some hashtag, the AI will tell you, seen from this perspective, this is where you were good, or that's where you messed up, and here are some things you could do better. Certainly a very, very powerful story, right? I'm gonna continue this with a question that's kind of, both of you can take a crack at it. And it would be interesting to see what your take is on this one. What steps should companies take to ensure that they are ready for AI when it comes to talent intelligence, right? From a content perspective. So there are content ecosystems in all companies, right? There is standard operating procedures, there's videos, there's recorded training sessions, podcasts, PowerPoint slide decks, there's learning catalogs buried into learning management systems. I don't know, there's a ton of different things out there. But are they ready? Are they searchable? Are they mapped for taking advantage of AI? So I want to sort of open it to you both with that.
Poonam, you want to go first?
Go ahead, Bhaskar.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting and good one, because Poonam, I'm interested in your thought as you work with the different customers. I think that's the sort of the end goal, right? When you're searching or you're recommending content, Poonam talked about learning content earlier. that you are tying it to the right skill. And sort of the challenge is that the content can come from many different sources. The content is coming in-house content that your folks have built. There's content in your learning management system. If you have a learning experience, you're actually tapping into something outside. You're bringing the content from the Coursera's or Skillsoft of the world, as well as you're bringing in a creator economy, you have the content which is created by your own folks as well, which is kind of more user-generated content. So in each of these, the job of the platform really is to make sure that the right content is mapped to the right skill. And it's easier said than done because of the diversity of skills that you have. And then, it's not a simple synonym mapping, like a better term, that someone calls it in a certain way, another calls it another way, but it's the same. Now I'm going to go a little bit deep into the technology field side on this one to talk about how we are solving it. We believe that skills are not simple maps. Like it's hard to say this skill is similar to this skill. So that's one. And the second thing is across different skills, the similarity might be different in a sense. I might be 50% similar to one skill, or another skill could be 80% similar to another skill. And lack of a better term, it's not a simple hierarchy either, that you group skills together and then you say these skills belong to this group. So what we ended up doing, and I'm talking about the technology solution, is that we believe it's a graph, similar to how you have a graph in Facebook, that I'm related to this, I'm friends with this person, but it's sort of a multidimensional graph. It can go across different domains. That's how we are approaching it. So because once you're harmonizing a multidimensional graph, now your mapping becomes a bit more easier than if you make it too linear, like a better term. And we're seeing very good early success with that. But it's not for the faint-hearted, because you need to constantly do care and feeding of that for that graph. So Poonam, I'm curious about your thoughts on this.
No, thanks, Bhaskar. That's a very interesting way to present the graph model of it. So for me, we all have, every organization, I think today has a ton of good content sitting with it. Most of it is almost in a SCOM package, which is a black box, which no one knows what's inside it. So if the content is not searchable, if it's not tagged, then it's almost not useful for AI today. So in fact, there was a very interesting study by Gartner which said that most of the AI projects fail due to poor data management. And from that perspective, even for learning, if the content isn't presented well or structured properly, the AI initiatives in L&D would struggle. So from that perspective, I think the L&D, to make the content ready for AI and skills talent platforms, there are three key things I would recommend organizations to look at. First of all, it's the content which they have. The traditional content was long hour content and non-reusable pieces. Instead of that, if they can be repurposed into modular reusable pieces, so that when AI finds that content, it's short enough to be given to a learner for a particular skill. So that's one thing, repurpose content. Secondly, make sure that that content has rich metadata and tagged properly to skills. And again, AI can be very helpful here. And I think we alluded to that in the few minutes back, like AI can help you harmonize those tags as skills and so on. So that's the second thing I would recommend everyone to look at. And then the third thing, again, which we talked about, was integrating it with the system, because just having the content ready, map to skills, doesn't do the job unless it's integrated in a bigger ecosystem where you can get an understanding of what the learner is or the employee is facing challenges with, where are the gaps, and what learning support do they need. So integrating it into the system so that the learner can be given just-in-time right support as needed. So interestingly, for one of our customers who had like thousands of such SCOM packages, um, uh, uh, for learning content. What we did for them was we almost wrote an AI automation routine, which could actually get into those AI packages, extract the right content, understand the metadata, summarize it, all of it, so that then those same COM packages were much more searchable and skill mapped to assets, which could be made available to the learners in the right way. So basically, the key takeaway for me is that making content AI ready, it's not about creating new content, but it's really unlocking the value which is in your content already by mapping it to the right skills. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Both are fascinating perspectives, and I think I can imagine the the skills as graphs with arcs that have weights, and given a piece of content, calculating which one is most relevant for this given skill at this point in time. So we'll leave that for now and just bring it all together. Companies are moving to a greater fluidity of roles which demand skills. Integrating multiple systems seamlessly creates a shared skill graph that unlocks reliable intelligence and helps you in agile workforce planning. We have this ambitious move toward talent intelligence platforms that we discussed today. Several benefits, including revealing capability gaps and taking better decisions. And finally, there's a lot about assessing those skills and having, like Eric said, verifiable skills used in workforce planning. That's all that came up today. I'm going to quickly hand this over to Mahesh for closure, and here we go.
Thank you, Vikas, and thanks to all the panelists. Today's discussion was super exciting for me, and hope everyone who joined today's session found it to be equally exciting and give them a lot of insights. Before we move to questions posted by our attendees, I would like to share with our viewers that Harbinger is a global technology company that builds products and innovative solutions that transform the way people work and learn. For 30 plus years, Harbinger has been innovating alongside organizations that are in the people business, serving the human resources, e-learning, digital publishing, education, and high-tech sectors or high-tech industries. As a trusted AI consulting and engineering partner, Harbinger helps businesses evolve from conventional processes to AI-driven, future-ready business workflows, and ensuring AI adoption drives measurable business values. So with that, we would like to take some questions from the panel. I think one of the questions that was asked by Daniela has been answered by Bhaskar on the chat. Thank you, Bhaskar, for doing that. Any other questions? Let me look at those quickly. Kumudini? One more question that we got from the audience is, we are talking about linking learning outcomes to business results. So can you talk about linking skills acquired to business results, and how would that look like? I know Poonam and Bhaskar both touched upon those, but Poonam mentioned about business outcomes too. Either of you could take that and address that question, please.
Bhaskar, you want to go ahead?
Sure. So I think early on when I was talking about talent intelligence platform, the North Star, I mentioned about the employee retention. I still believe that is the North Star that we work on. So any skills transformation, any upskilling, skilling that you're doing, the final outcome that you measure would be related to how you're able to retain your employees. And from a talent intelligence platform ROI perspective, that's what we've seen, the customers really looking at that. You have, there are other metrics that fully supports that, how much you have kind of moved the needle in terms of reskilling, upskilling. But in the end, over a period of time, you should be able to see that, your retention rate has gone up because of a successful implementation of your talent intelligence platform. Poonam.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Bhaskar. I think you captured it pretty well. So I'll just give an example at Harbinger. Since we have been doing the skills mapping to various engineers or the programmers we have here at Harbinger. So earlier in the past, it was all about which technology the developer or the programmer knows and applying having those people position in those projects. Instead, now with skills, our focus is more on who understands logical programming better, ability to troubleshoot better, which is where the skills come into picture. And then whether it really doesn't matter which technology I'm programming or doing my coding, as long as I have the right skills to look at the code, I should be able to participate in those multiple projects. So that's an example where the skills acquired helped us in the getting better business results through that mapping.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhaskar and Poonam both. And with that, I think we're coming to the closure of this exciting webinar. Thank you all the panelists, Vikas for hosting this, and panelists Bhaskar, Eric, and Poonam for sharing your insights and answering questions. For other unanswered questions, we'll be emailing your responses to all of you. Thanks for joining today. And you're welcome to connect with our panelists directly via LinkedIn. We have shared their LinkedIn profiles in the links right now in the chat window. With that, I once again thank you, Vikas, and all of our panelists for a wonderful discussion today. And I know I'm taking a lot of insights from this session, and I'm sure that all of you are too, to think about the skills as the new currency and the talent transformation. I would like to thank all of our viewers for taking your precious time to join today's session. And you've been an amazing audience. Best wishes. Thank you again. Take care and have a good one.